there are states with some real firecrackers, some mavericks in these state legislatures that are really excited about sound money. So off the top of my head, we have people in Alaska, people in Oklahoma, people in Iowa, people in Texas. These are places where the reason that they're wanting to establish in-state depositories, the reason why they're wanting to protect state taxpayer funds is because they don't believe in the dollar, and they want to move any gold that they might have out of the clutches of Federal Reserve banks or big, New York or LA banks. They're wanting to get money out of the clutches of the federal system and move it back into a system that, benefits themselves, the states themselves, and is under control largely by states themselves. So the Constitution says that states are not allowed to coin money, but they are allowed to use money that it is established that is made of gold and silver. And that can be provided by the private market. It can be provided by the feds, as we're seeing that today. But there's no reason that a private industry can't. The way we're seeing goldbacks, for example, they have several different versions of their notes that apply to different states. They have a New Hampshire goldback and a Nevada goldback and Utah goldback. So there's a lot of progress happening in this space. And I think when markets are able to act without governments getting in the way, legislation and legislators getting in their way, really promising things can happen. So I'm very bullish on the future of a couple of these states working very hard to promote sound money and to opt back into gold and silver.
Welcome to another RTD interview. Today, I'm excited to have first-time guest, Mr. Jp Cortez, the policy director for the Sound Money Defense League. Today, JP is joining us to share his thoughts on the economy and the importance of, getting sound money back into the people's hands and helping people realize the importance of gold and silver as money in today's environment. So, JP, welcome to RTD interviews.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for sitting down with me. And as I mentioned beforehand, looking forward to finding out, what's happening at the ground roots of everything, just because most people don't get a chance to understand the state's activity when it comes to trying to reinstate and reestablish gold and silver as lawful money, which is what it is and which it should be. But before we dive into that and what's going on with you guys, give us a little bit about your background and how you've arrived at this point in your career.
Yeah, sure. So late in high school, I would say I was in my late teens when I discovered Congressman Ron Paul, former congressman from Texas. And I noticed that a lot of the things that he was championing were things that resonated very strongly with me. Personal rights, individual liberty, but respect, freedom. And so it was through Ron Paul that I ended up, discovering the Austrian School of Economics. And so I graduated from high school with a ambiguous but skeptical stance towards government and towards, an authority which I wasn't sure where it had the powers, where it, was granted those powers that it was exercising. So I ended up at Auburn University down in Auburn, Alabama. And right across the street from Auburn's business school, where I was doing, plenty of my classes, was the Mises Institute. And the Mises Institute is the world's leading foremost institute on Austrian economics. And so I fell deeper down this rabbit hole, and I discovered the works of Mises and Rothbard and Guido Hülsmann. And I was fascinated by something that had happened in American history. I learned very, very much about sound money and about something that happened in 1971, which was when America fully closed the gold window, severed any tie to gold. Excuse me. And this has moral and economic and geopolitical implications that we're still seeing play out today. And so now, with the dollar having no tie to gold, and the dollar's fate left to prognosticators, unelected prognosticators at that, the most obvious thing in the world happened, right? Inflation rose and the purchasing power of American dollar is now suffering. Government spending went largely unchecked. The things that the government was spending money on were largely wasteful programs, from foreign wars to domestic programs that have stifled their own people, and massive wealth inequality that came from the severing of the gold standard completely in 1971. And so after I graduated from Auburn University, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I teamed up with Stephen Gleason. And Stephen is the president of Money Metals Exchange. It's one of the largest online precious metals dealers and depositories here in the US. And we decided to start a group advocating for sound money. And what we found was the best way to do that was to remonetize gold and silver by removing the friction into and out of gold and silver. The truth is that inflation is a policy choice, and we're looking around, and the ones the most harmed by this policy choice of perpetual dollar devaluation are the poorest among us. It's the people on fixed incomes. It's the pensioners. It's the hourly workers. It's the folks without any savings that are able to protect against dollar devaluation and price inflation. And so what we found is that while all of these damages, while much of this damage stems from the federal level, states don't have to be a party to the damage done by them. They don't have to be victim to the damage wrought by the feds. And so they can proactively remove some of the impediments to going into and out of gold and silver. So right now, in this moment, there are 8 states across the United States that still charge sales tax on gold and silver. When you buy precious metals, gold, silver, silver eagles, gold bars, whatever it is, they're going to charge you sales tax on top of the capital gains tax that you have to pay when you sell the asset. So the government is providing disincentives. It's providing friction into moving in and out of the dollar because they want you in the dollar. And so, not only does this include on a personal level, individuals wanting to invest in gold and silver, but also states themselves many times are hamstrung from protecting state assets in gold and silver. Many states are not allowed to hold physical gold on their state balance sheets, on their reserves, on their taxpayer funds. And so we're also working with legislation to empower states to do things like that, to opt out of the dollar and opt back into the Constitution, into constitutional sound money. And so I left law school. I decided to leave law school in my first year to pursue this sound money advocacy. And it has been an incredible experience. And we're seeing sound money become more to the fold today more than ever.
All right. Great point there. Thank you for elaborating on that. So you gave us a lot of things there. So let's dissect some of that. So at the state level, I think as it's from the founding of this nation here, from all the documents provided to us, states were responsible for the role of gold and silver as money, ultimately speaking. And so what are some of the things that's taking place now at the state level as far as legislation is concerned? And how do you, remove the taxes as well as all that, the details of that, but then also help you educate people on the importance of having it in their possession?
Yeah, so the legislation that we have been working on, fortunately, has been a really wide array of issues here. So the sales tax issue was one that I mentioned earlier. In most states, in fact, in all states, there are no states that I know of that will charge you a sales tax to buy an asset. If you buy real estate, stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, whatever it is, no state is going to charge you a sales tax on that, because sales taxes are for final finished goods, and this is an asset held for resale, and you're charged capital gains on it when you sell. So for that reason, a sales tax is completely inappropriate. There are also states that are working to eliminate the income tax, the tax that you have to pay when you sell the asset if you have experienced a gain. There are a couple of states that have introduced and passed legislation to do that. And the argument there is, well, it's not actually a gain because gold is just priced in dollars. So when the price of gold goes up, it's not that the gold has become more valuable. It's that the purchasing power of each individual dollar has decreased. So it simply takes more dollars to buy the same ounce of gold.
Right.
Other states, too, are working to remove other kinds of taxation. There are states that are working to establish in-state depositories so they can hold gold within their own state. There are also states that are working on the reserve issue and the pension fund issue. Pension funds in this country are largely underfunded, and we're heading deep into a pension crisis. And some states are actively thinking about making changes to their allocations to make sure that their states are protected with gold and silver. Ohio recently invested almost $1 billion to their fire and police pension fund in physical gold and silver. So using these pieces of legislation and well, starting with the Constitution and using that as a jump off, Article 1, Section 10 and Article 1, Section 8, making it very clear that America was founded, the monetary system that America was founded on was one based in gold and silver. There is no question of that when you look at the Constitution. On top of that, it also explicitly says that you cannot emit bills of credit, which is then what that describes paper money, which is exactly what we have today. What we have today is political money. It's the farthest thing from sound money. And so allowing people to move back and forth within gold and silver and acquire gold and silver without being hit with a confiscatory tax for doing so is so important, especially today at this time of high inflation, unlike we've ever seen before, a CPI at 8.5%, and there's no reason to believe that it's going to stop or slow down anytime soon. And geopolitical strife all over the world. We don't know what's happening with the uncertainty happening right now in Eastern Europe. More than ever today, Mike, people need access. The states themselves need access to gold and silver. This is sound money. It's money that has retained its value for time immemorial. And so using the opportunity, the very sad opportunity of the uncertainty and the high inflation that we're seeing today, and using this to educate people and to inform people that have never given thought to the question of, hey, what is money? Why do these pieces of paper in my wallet mean anything? And when you start digging at that and you start asking those questions, you'll find that what we have today in America is at best a house of cards. It's political fiat money that enables all sorts of really horrible government actions. And so returning to sound money is ever important for those reasons.
Right. And so before we went on air, rather, you mentioned how, you can't really expect much at the federal level. You have to take it down to the state level. And it seems like, state by state, there's some activity happening that shows promise. And so in my opinion, is there such thing? Is it too late? Given the state of our country with the debt load, and of course, I guess for the Ohio Pension Fund, able to allocate some of their savings into gold, that shows promise. But do you think there's enough time left before the economy in a whole comes to a screeching halt or to a crash or whatever it might be in the near future, or what? What are your opinions on that?
I think that we are seeing today more than ever states themselves taking proactive steps to protect themselves and their individuals from the inflation, from the impending crash that you're talking about. So this year we worked on 24 pieces of legislation across 11 different states in the United States here that are introducing and wanting to discuss pro sound money legislation. Mm-hmm. And that is a number that has grown. We've been doing this project now for almost 7 years. That number has grown every single year. And every single year we get more legislators, more people in the state, more investors, more coin dealers, bullion dealers in the state telling us, wow, this is so incredibly important. And because of the uncertainty, because the Federal Reserve shows no signs of stopping, today more than ever, this needs to happen. And so, yeah, we're seeing great growth on the state level, on the individual level, and even on the federal level. Congressman Alex Mooney out of West Virginia has introduced a couple of pieces of federal legislation. One regarding the income tax that I mentioned, ending taxes on any gains that you might have on gold and silver, because they're not real gains, but also auditing the America's gold reserves. The America's gold reserves have been in question. There's been a lot of mystery around whether or not the gold is actually still there. Or if it has been encumbered or leased or loaned out or swapped to another entity, another government, perhaps. So there is certainly a lot of question. And that's why it is exciting and it's empowering to see states and individuals and even the feds waking up to the problem that exists. It's no longer deniable, right? So for a long time, Jerome Powell told us that there was no inflation. And then he told us that the inflation was transitory. And then he told us, hey, no, this inflation is actually good for the working class. And now, we're being told that, again, Janet Yellen is regularly telling us this shows no signs of stopping. And most recently, Jen Psaki has been going on stage every day, or going behind the pulpit every day, and calling this inflation Putin's price hike. No longer, it is getting more difficult day by day for the American powers that be, the money managers in America, to deny that this is the fault of massive money printing that started a long time ago, but especially accelerated over the last 2 or 3 years.
All right, very true. And so as you're speaking, I see the book over your shoulder, the Sound Money Index. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, but also just to try to break things down to even the minute details of things. I try to distinguish between currency and money, just because they've the excess of fiat currency and the reserves and things of that nature is what has become the problem. And lawful money, i.e. sound money, which you guys focus on, is a solution to protect and preserve. And so I'm curious to get your thoughts, because a lot of people in this audience here, they're precious metals enthusiasts, or silver bugs, or whatever you want to call them. And so they realize that, due to, I guess, the futures and the paper and the price suppression mechanisms have kept gold and silver from revealing their true value, nominally speaking, and because they're priced in Federal Reserve notes. So give us your thoughts and opinions on how, since, I guess, gold and silver was, recategorized as a commodity after after the gold window was closed, the COMEX futures opened up. So now people actually are told to view gold and silver as a commodity rather than money itself. Is that part of the problem? And how do we work around that, in your opinion?
I think that is totally part of the problem. The way Americans are taught to think about money and where money derives its value, I think, is totally backwards. And it's going to take an unlearning for people to get back to the idea that a money founded or with a standard is a more ideal monetary system than the one that we live in today. I think one of your question gets to something, what I believe to be a government hoodwink, if you will, which is the idea of legal tender, right? And this is happening a lot in the crypto space right now. We've dealt with it in the precious metal space. And obviously the Supreme Court itself has dealt with the issue of legal tender. And what I have found while researching this topic, working on legislation on this topic, and working with constitutional lawyers that have studied this issue, for a very long time, legal tender is nothing more than a government designation that applies monetary qualities to goods that don't naturally have them. So gold and silver don't need to be called legal tender. We don't need permission from the government to be legal tender, because gold and silver are money. It is sound money. It is chosen by the market. The reason the dollar bill in your wallet today is stamped on there, this is legal tender of the United States, that's because outside of that stamp, that paper has no value. What the legal tender designation is nothing more than a government stamp of approval that says, hey, we can use this for money. So the government powers waved their wand, and they took something without monetary properties and they said, here, now this has monetary properties, voila. And we're seeing this today. We've seen it for the last couple of years. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see it for the next several years. That is not the property of a good money. That is not how a good money survives long terms. And ultimately, the truth is that, second to language, money is the second largest and most powerful communicative tool that human beings have. This is the way we communicate and interact with each other. And when these signals get mixed up, when these signals are manipulated or obfuscated, we see today that mismanagement happens, monetary mismanagement happens, recessions happen, infrastructure crumbles, people are not able to plan long-term for the future. And so the importance of a stable money has never been more important than it is today. And that's why getting back to sound money is ever important. And we're working on that on the state and federal level, every day.
All right, good point there. Now, so moving forward, I wonder how all this shake out in the future, because a lot of people in the metal space already, they're early adopters rather, or trying to preserve and protect themselves with the acquisition of metals in their possession. And so a lot of people are looking forward to that future price. And we hear a lot of, speculation, 10,000 gold, because ultimately, as I say here, every Federal Reserve note will be held accountable in the form of an actual number equated to 1 ounce of gold or 1 ounce of silver. And so how do we, so this is just try to play things through my mind. How will we get back to the point where gold and silver can be functional on a day-to-day basis in use, where I give you some form of a weight of measurement for value rather than being reliant upon a price and a number in a central bank fiat currency? Like, that's the part where I don't know how this will play out, because we have the digital representations. So some people are saying, put your metals over here and back it by a token and just trade the token back and forth. Give us your thoughts on what you see for the future usage of sound money in people's hands, and will it get back to something that we can use on a day-to-day basis?
So I think that because of Gresham's law, the idea that bad money drives out good money when the bad money is legally mandated, that is going to hold true. And so long as the government continues to print easy money, so long as there continues to be a central body that is adjusting the supply of money at its whim, I think that's always going to be a problem. And people are never, and I think rightfully so, people are never going to want to spend an appreciating asset and exchange that for a depreciating asset, right? And I think that's kind of the argument with Bitcoiners, right? Like there is a set amount of Bitcoin in the world. There's a set amount of gold in the world. Why would I ever exchange one of these, one Bitcoin or 1 ounce of gold, for something that the government prints millions of every single day? And so as far as a currency, I think there's, especially with the digital space coming up, and I think there's a lot of value in, leveraging digital technologies to reduce the friction in money management and how monetary systems work. As far as backing your gold with a token, I think that an option like that, it would be great. I think gold backs, for example, is an option. They're doing small denominational paper currency notes that have the gold in the actual film. That's a really cool invention. Future progress in the gold as money space. I think Glint is another one of these programs that is using gold, is trying to do a gold as a medium of exchange. But I think that the bigger issue is going to be not necessarily whether or not someone is able to buy a Whopper at McDonald's with a gold eagle. I don't think that is the ultimate goal or what would be ideal. But I think teaching people that stores of value and units of measurement and the stability of those things are incredibly important. I think that value, or that lesson, is tremendous in value. And I think that through that learning, people will be more likely to think about value of money, they'll be more likely to think about savings and think about lowering their time preference. Time preference is an Austrian idea. And so I think that whether or not people can buy their groceries in gold matters less than people understanding that the monetary system that we have today, one that's run by unelected bureaucrats, very mysteriously, that no one can really hold accountable. We know for a fact that what we have today is not the answer. The future, I'll leave it up to the market.
Right. Good point there. Now, as we draw towards the end, I'm curious to get your thoughts just about, future projections and, what possibilities lie ahead. Do you see a state it's in the near future saying that we no longer want to use these, we want to use our own? Some people out here saying that there's a new version of fiat or treasury issue notes that are attached with silver, perhaps again, mimicking the silver certificates of yesteryears. Do you see that being a possibility? Given, and of course, the sound money index, there's some states that are leading the way in reference to making gold and silver well known throughout their state. Can you see something like that coming in the near future?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely can. There are states with some real firecrackers, some mavericks in these state legislatures that are really excited about sound money. So off the top of my head, we have people in Alaska, people in Oklahoma, people in Iowa, people in Texas. These are places where they're talking about, the reason that they're wanting to establish in-state depositories, the reason why they're wanting to protect state taxpayer funds is because they don't believe in the dollar, and they want to move any gold that they might have out of the clutches of Federal Reserve banks or big, New York or LA banks. They're wanting to get money out of the clutches of the federal system and move it back into a system that benefits themselves, the states themselves, and is under control largely by states themselves. So the Constitution says that states are not allowed to coin money, but they are allowed to use money that it is established that is made of gold and silver, and that can be provided by the private market. It can be provided by the feds, as we're seeing that today. But there's no reason that a state or rather a private industry can't. The way we're seeing goldbacks, for example, they have several different versions of their notes that apply to different states. They have a New Hampshire goldback and a Nevada goldback and Utah goldback. So there's a lot of progress happening in this space, and I think when markets are able to act without governments getting in the way, without legislation and legislators getting in their way, really promising things can happen. So I'm very bullish on the future of a couple of these states working very hard to promote sound money and to opt back into gold and silver.
All right, JP. Well, I appreciate you for sitting down with us and sharing what's happening on the ground as far as individual states deciding to put their efforts towards reinstating or reestablishing gold and silver back into the people's hands, minus the taxation and things of that nature. If you don't mind, can you point back to where you do writing? Because I know you do some writing or whatnot, and just have at it, man. Let the audience know where they can find you at.
Yeah, sure thing, man. So the site is soundmoneydefense.org. The organization is the Sound Money Defense League. My name is Jp Cortez. I'm the policy director here. You can find me at Jp Cortez 27 on Twitter. Moneymetals.com and moneymetals.com/sound money index is where you can find the 2021 Sound Money Index. This is where we rate all 50 states using a number of different criteria to determine which states have the best pro sound money environment. So you can check that out at moneymetals.com/sound money index. And I am available. My contact information is on the soundmoneydefense.org site. So I'm happily available. Always happy to come on and chat again. Thanks for having me, Mike.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So once again, thanks for joining us at RTD Interviews. Looking forward to having you on in the future to stay up to date with what's happening on the state level in reference to, reinstating and reinstalling sound money back into the people's hands. So appreciate you and thank you for your time, my friend.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Mike. See ya.